We have some breaking news to go over today as the Toronto Blue Jays have made a sneaky good signing, and in light of Erik Swanson going down with an injury, the Jays have made a big move as it pertains to the bullpen. I'm going to break down exactly who it is and discuss what it means going forward, as well as a couple other spring training updates. But before we get into that, folks, quick reminder, hit that subscribe button. If you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Jays content. Now, ladies and gentlemen, some pretty big news today. Now, in light of Erik Swanson going down with an injury, I had a video on earlier today surrounding their new target, David Robertson. They signed somebody else now as well to a major league deal, which is a bit of a surprise here. Big surprise, quite honestly. And you can see this here. The Blue Jays have agreed to a major league deal with right-handed reliever Dylan Tate. Deal's pending a physical. The Jays claimed Tate off waivers from the Orioles last September and called him up later that month. He made 4 appearances and was non-tendered in November. So a bunch of different things to go over here. Now, I had a video earlier today, of course, on the Erik Swanson injury, which we'll dive into a little bit more here. But they ultimately signed Dylan Tate to a major league deal. Now, in a world where Ryan Yarbrough had a fantastic season for the Jays and the Dodgers last year, got a minor league deal, they wasted no time, the Jays, filling up that hole surrounding Erik Swanson with a major league deal. Now, this is interesting because I wanted them to go out and get David Robertson. I think David Robertson still is a possibility depending on who breaks camp and all these different things. But they chose to take the gamble with Dylan Tate, someone they are familiar with. They claimed him off waivers, and we saw him last September eat up some innings in a season that was lost for the Jays. But a very surprising one because I would have much preferred David Robertson, although he's older. And they went with another right-handed reliever. So not a lefty, a righty. And this is, they clearly have some faith in Dylan Tate to take over some of those high leverage innings. And as you look at some of his stats, he has some upside, but he struggled mightily last year. Between Baltimore and the Blue Jays, he combined for a 4.66 ERA in 33 games. Had had a save in 10 games finished. With the Jays, 4 games, a 5.40 ERA. Clearly, they see something that they like with Dylan Tate. Now, his arm at times can be electric. He's coming off of, in 2022, a very good season. Missed the entirety of the 2023 season here with an injury, I believe it was. So, he's 30 years old. He's younger than David Robertson. And I think the Jays are taking a gamble here that he will be able to give them some sort of leverage outings based on that 2022 season. Now, I'm curious to see what you guys think about the signing down below because ultimately it's at a very weird point with Dylan Tate. He's coming off a year that was bad, and as you compare it to a guy like David Robertson who was coming off a year that was very good, you'd assume that David Robertson would be a bit more expensive, but they're major league deals. So this guy is going to be on the 40-man. He's going to be on the 26-man active roster. He's going to be in the bullpen. It is a major league deal. The question is, do we have faith in Dylan Tate giving the Jays some leverage innings? Because I spoke about it in the video earlier. They needed a guy, one more guy, who can take over leverage innings. They have Jimmy Garcia, they had Chad Green, they have Jeff Hoffman. Other than that, there's not a ton of realistic bullpen options that can take over a ton of leverage innings. Obviously, you have guys like Brennan Little for lefties. You have Nick Sandlin, who John Schneider is going to use against lefties. But surrounding Dylan Tate, it's interesting. Turned 31 in May, was with Toronto briefly at the end of last year. The Jays claimed him off waivers, like I mentioned, in the first day of September, if you remember. Now, not a lot of Jays fans were still watching the games back in September because of the way that they were playing. I, of course, was, and Dylan Tate looked okay, not great. He made 4 appearances, didn't look great, but the Jays could have retained him via arbitration, with Matt Schwartz projecting a $1.9 million salary, but the club non-tendered him instead. Prior to that brief stint with the Jays, Tate's journey had many ups and downs, and ultimately, it's interesting because they could have kept him around for a $1.9 million salary. Now, we don't know the exact number. It doesn't matter too much, but it matters in the sense of, David Robertson was projected to get a $7 million deal. Let's say Dylan Tate's deal was $1.9 million for the sake of argument because we have that number available to us as the projection from MLB Trade Rumors contributor Matt Schwartz. That's a much cheaper number than David Robertson. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, Robertson's not signed. If you could have gotten David Robertson at a number similar to Dylan Tate, I would have preferred Robertson. Now, if the Jays got him at a much cheaper, maybe. Like, the upside is there. We saw it in 2022. He was an elite reliever, a 3 ERA. But the problem now is, again, the details haven't been publicly reported, but the Jays will now have to open a 40-man roster spot, and it's interesting. You could move Alek Manoah, Angel Bastardo, to the 6-day injury list. You might, if Erik Swanson, if they know Erik Swanson is going down with Tommy John, they can move him as well. But this now shifts the focus to Tommy John a little bit. Not to Tommy John, to Erik Swanson a little bit. Because like I covered earlier, he's meeting with the doctor on Thursday. We'll have a big update surrounding that. But in case you missed it, he's dealing with a forearm elbow injury and will meet Dr. Keith Meister, the same one that Garrett Cole met, the same guy who usually leads to Tommy John surgery, right? Swanson has been slowed by forearm injury and elbow issues this spring. Blue Jays manager John Schneider referred to Swanson's arm issues as a little bit of a recurring theme, and the goal with Thursday's exam is to nail down exactly what's going on. More clarity on Swanson's situation is anticipated after Thursday's meeting, but the reliever is expected to begin the season on the IL regardless of the outcome of the exam. So if he is getting, hopefully he doesn't, but if he is getting Tommy John, that opens up the roster spot. If not, you can definitely move things around. But this is a bad sign as pertains to their confidence level in Erik Swanson, because I don't imagine if they thought that Erik Swanson was going to be remotely healthy anytime soon, they would sign Dylan Tate to a major league deal this late in camp, right? We're 2 weeks and 3 days. We're 17 days away as of today from the opening game series, a home opener against the Orioles, right? They could have made this deal a while ago, and of course, they just got news about him meeting Keith Meister. It is a bad sign surrounding Erik Swanson, and we're hoping that he's going to be able to bounce back this season, but all signs are pointing to him going down with a serious injury. And like I mentioned in the video earlier, it's been a brutal last couple of years for Swanson. He was supposedly really feeling good this year. It was going to be the big year where he can bounce back and the bullpen was going to look good, but boy, oh boy, is that not the case now. And as you start to look at their bullpen, it is a lot thinner. You have Jeff Hoffman, Chad Green, Jimmy Garcia, a fantastic three. From there, you have Nick Sandlin, who was good last season for the Cleveland Guardians. You also now have Dylan Tate, who I assume would factor ahead of guys like Zach Pop and Tommy Nance. And I don't even know if Tommy Nance and Zach Pop will make the team now because they signed Dylan Tate. And I covered again in the video earlier today. You should check that out after this one if you haven't. Aaron Zolin basically said guys like Zach Pop, Tommy Nance, Richard Lovelady, a bunch of the players like this are fighting for that last bullpen spot, but they just seem to have solved it externally with Dylan Tate. Now, who will he replace? Again, probably Zach Pop, being a leverage kind of guy. You would assume he would slide in after Jimmy Garcia. Like, I think they have faith in Dylan Tate to be a sixth inning guy. And if that is the case, then you have enough. Hopefully, the Jays front office is hoping you have enough firepower there with Jeff Hoffman, one of the best closers in baseball, Chad Green, Jimmy Garcia. But at the end of the day, like, they got rid of Jordan Romano. They got rid of Genesis Cabrera. They are in a spot now where you got to hope that Dylan Tate has a good year. Now, if he has a bounce back year like he did in 2022, fantastic. Great signing by Ross Atkins. If he has a year similar to last year, you're going to be scratching your head wondering why we didn't just pay a bit more money for a guy like David Robertson, who I can't imagine is even going to get $7 million at this point. It's so late in the camp, maybe $3 or $4 million. Now, of course, there's also the sign of whether or not David Robertson wanted to be a J and all these different things, but I can't help but keep looking at David Robertson as the replacement, but it's not going to happen right now at the very least. And again, among them, you can see here from, this was last week when the initial report dropped regarding Erik Swanson. His injury opens a pathway for one of several relievers who have been impressing Jays decision makers: Zach Pop, Tommy Nance, Josh Walker, Richard Lovelady, etc., right? And they chose to go with the internal option in Dylan Tate. So let me know down below what your thoughts are on this. Do you have faith in Tate? Would you have preferred a guy like David Robertson? And ultimately, this is not a good sign for Erik Swanson. We're going to keep you up to date with all the latest news, so make sure to hit that subscribe button. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on the signing. I still think it's a sneaky good signing, but at the end of the day, I probably would have rather David Robertson. But if he can bounce back like he did in 2022, sky's the limit for this bullpen.